Uh, Thank you for joining us in our adaptation webinar series. Today is our third webinar, and we have Naomi Wolf from ORCCA, which is the Ontario Resource Centre for Climate Adaptation, and she will walk us through their resource hub and support service. But before I pass it to her, I wanted to start with a land acknowledgement. Clean Air Partnership is a Toronto-based organization, and we acknowledge that the land on which we operate is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. In our effort to be and to deliver more meaningful acknowledgement, we often share a short video where we can learn something more about Indigenous culture and life. In today's video, we're going to hear Elder Duke Redbird recites his poem, A Dish with One Spoon.
The Mississauga Nation welcomed settlers from across the seas when they arrived in their territories. Such beauty revealed before their eyes was beyond their ability to describe. In all the languages that the settlers spoke, there were no words that could evoke with any clarity a single thought that Mother Nature's splendor brought. It was from the indigenous tongues that the settlers learned the language of the earth in all her idioms. Toronto from Takaranto, trees standing in the water, a meeting place where small fish could gather. Nearby hills where alders grow, that was called Etobicoke. And in the autumn before the winter snow, the passenger pigeons rested in Mimico. And to the west, where the great waters flow, the lake and lands were called Ontario. Eagles soar high and with prayers for Manitou, the Mississauga people smudge and launch their birchbark canoes. Three sisters, corn, bean, and squash. The planting season has begun. Tobacco is offered a gift to grandfather's son. Sage, sweetgrass, and cedar to grandmother moon. There is peace, joy, and harmony in the treaty lands called A Dish with One Spoon.
Megwad for watching. Really quickly, the purpose of today's or the purpose of the adaptation webinar series is really to get a sense of where our CAC municipalities are in their adaptation journey and trying to help you in whatever stage you are. And also to showcase and to present examples of other municipalities who are ahead, who can share from their lessons learned or best practices, as well as to share existing resources and tools, which is really today's webinar purpose, and discuss specific thematic adaptation and resilience initiatives. And we have our next webinar in this series where we're going to talk about extreme heat, and I'm going to share more about this in the next slides. So these are the research questions that we gathered throughout our conversations, meetings, and webinars and workshops on adaptation for the last few years, and as well as it was confirmed during this webinar series that they're still applicable. And what we are trying to achieve really is through the webinars to answer some of these questions. So in the next few slides, I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to go actually and provide you of what it came, the report back on what you said in the last webinar. So the question was, what is your hope for outcome after undertaking a cost of doing nothing research in your municipality? A little bit of backup. It was identified that there's still need for research on cost of doing nothing. So the next question was like, what will be useful for, and there is 5 municipalities confirming that it's for buy-in and developing the business case, and 3 municipalities pointed out that they need the metrics and data to showcase financial and human cost. I just did it. I just put a quote here from the Government of Canada Adaptation Action Plan that every dollar spent on adaptation measures today saves up to $15 in the future, including both direct and indirect economy-wide benefits. The next question was, what are the main gaps of developing a cost of doing nothing? And 8 municipalities responded lack of data, 3 municipalities unclear about the methods, and 1 municipality similarly kind of like unclear about the steps that need to be taken. What tools or supports would help you advance cost of doing nothing? There were 5 municipalities saying that it will be beneficial to have easy calculation tools. 3 municipalities would like a list of parameters. Some municipalities are using the same data, for example, the cost of a life. And these are not exclusive. I believe such a list will be helpful for the tool as well as a tailored guidance. How has climate resilience been mainstreamed for those municipalities who are a bit ahead of the adaptation? It's through climate lens, official plans, and other policies and plans. But of course, majority of the municipality that participated last webinar actually confirmed that it's not yet mainstreamed in their municipality. So at this point, I will launch a quick poll where I'm asking you if you'll be interested, and maybe this answer will change after we see Naomi's presentation, because there is significant resources in the ORCCA hub about cost of doing nothing. I know that ICLEI, they have the toolkit, and I did share links to that in our first webinar, I think. But I'm offering this as Clean Air Partnership can do this this cohort. The idea here is that while we cannot help you get the data, because my assumption is that probably you need data from utilities and from insurance companies in order to develop your risk and vulnerability assessments. While we cannot do this, we can have this cohort where we can share experience and kind of like define the steps and practices that are used in other municipalities of like who to ask and when about the data. I do believe that we're going to see today a tool that supports that, but let's confirm it. So the next question that I'm asking you is, are you aware of some examples of successful community adaptation projects that can be shared and adopted elsewhere? This was one of the questions that was asked, and through the webinars, we are trying to answer this question. Last week, we presented Halifax examples, and I'm in the process of securing some more examples for future webinars where we can explore that. But if you are aware, that will help me to have a list so we can hear more about that. And the third question is, what are some tips on developing the buy-in for developing an adaptation plan and setting out the program-specific activities? We know that this is the reason for cost of doing nothing, but if you're aware of any like small tactics or tips, that will be very beneficial. I will leave the poll open as of now, because maybe you're still answering the 2 and 3 questions. And I'm going to move on to letting you know that our next webinar will be on May 14th, where we're going to hear Hamilton perspective on adaptation in response to extreme heat. In the first part, there's going to be a presentation from them, but in the second part, I'm really hoping for discussion as talking with Hamilton's team. It's not everything figured out. There's a lot of discussions that will help if we do it collectively, especially on the equity and extreme heat perspectives. So it will be great if you join us. Quick plug-in, climate tools that can support you, climate-related policies, is found in the Climate Policy Database, and climate implemented projects are found in the Climate Action Atlas, and I'll share links to those in the chat shortly. I believe that's it. Thanks everyone for answering the questions on the poll. I will stop it now. And share the results, even though you can just see the first one because the other ones are answered. But there is equally one municipality yes, one no, and one other. I see that we are a small group of people here, so that's fine. I probably will re-ask this question a few of those who were part of the previous webinars. And at this point, I think I'm going to pass it to Naomi. Naomi, you can take it away, and you're muted.
Sorry, with my screen sharing underway. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. And so I just wanted to start, so just getting my screens in order. But just wanted to start today by saying thank you so much for having me here. My name is Naomi Wolf, and I'm a climate change project coordinator with the Ontario Resource Centre for Climate Adaptation, otherwise known as ORCCA. It's a pleasure getting to be here with you all and to share more about our work within Ontario and the Great Lakes Basin and how we work towards strengthening regional adaptation. So in today's webinar, I'll be taking you through an overview of who we are and what we do with some insight into our key programs, as well as the services available, including our resource library and our support desk through the ORCCA website. So what is ORCCA? A good starting point. So ORCCA is the newest addition to a growing network of climate service organizations across Canada. And through our work, we seek to help Great Lakes communities and other Ontario users better understand, cope with, manage, and adjust to changing climatic conditions across the region. Our diverse team of adaptation experts and support staff bring a wide range of different experiences and skill sets to the table to deliver services to municipalities and organizations looking for resources and assistance with their adaptation efforts. Now, through these supports, we work towards our mission of equipping municipalities and leaders with the information and the tools that they need to increase climate resilience across the region. These efforts are driven by the need for accessible, reliable, actionable climate information and access to the expertise needed to interpret and apply this information in a local context. Our services can be accessed directly through the ORCCA website, which I'll share at the end of this presentation. However, as you will see, ORCCA is more than just a portal for accessing information. We are a team of people working in partnership with a range of communities and organizations in order to provide relevant programming and tailored support that can meet the unique needs of our users. So now, as I previously mentioned, ORCCA is the newest addition to a growing network of climate service organizations across Canada. This network includes Climate West in the Prairies, as well as Climate Atlantic on the East Coast, the Pacific Climate Impacts Consortium, again on the West Coast, and then Oranos in Quebec. Each of these organizations serve their regions by providing information and support for enhancing regional adaptation and resilience that meet their unique contexts and respond to their needs. So as the demand for climate services continues to grow within Ontario, the Great Lakes Basin, Canada, and internationally, we recognize that a constellation of players working together is important and are pleased to be a part of this network doing important work to foster climate resilience across the country. And I'm sure this collaboration is something you all know well, considering we're here together from different places and with different experiences. So who is behind ORCCA? ORCCA is a pilot initiative led by ICLEI Canada and supported by the Ontario Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, alongside financial support from the Government of Canada through the Federal Department of Environment and Climate Change Canada. In addition to the expertise that's brought to ORCCA through ICLEI's decades worth of experience, our work is guided by the ORCCA Steering Committee, which is made up of 12 member organizations from across the adaptation spectrum. These members meet monthly and bring their experience, their networks, their insights to the conversations happening around ORCCA and help to inform our programs, help to inform the resources we produce. And it's a space to generate important conversations around the adaptation issues that are happening and informing across Ontario. So to give you a sense of who ORCCA users can be, There's no level of knowledge that's required to access our services. Whether you are new to adaptation or a seasoned expert looking for specific information, a municipality looking to accelerate local adaptation, or an organization seeking relevant connections and information, we're here to help. Through the Resource Center, Great Lakes Basin and Ontario users can connect with us to access resources and find a range of programs and services that can help to support your work. Now, ORCCA offers 3 programs in addition to the services that we provide: the Staff Capacity Program, the Outreach and Engagement Program, and the Climate Communications Toolkit and Learning. And each of these helps to respond to the climate adaptation needs of communities in different ways. So I'll spend the next few minutes going over these programs and the work that is underway, as well as what's to come. Before doing that, I just wanted to note that our programs have been designed based on our experience working with municipalities, as well as through ongoing conversations with users such as yourselves. They aim to meet the specific needs, as mentioned, and respond to the unique and shared challenges that are faced by those seeking to take action on climate adaptation in Ontario. So the Staff Capacity Program launched in November 2023, and we now have 23 projects that are underway and got underway this past January. And through this program, ORCCA staff are working directly with a range of organizations, including 15 municipalities, 3 Indigenous partners, 2 conservation authorities, 1 school board, and 2 district health units. As you can see from this list, and as you'll note in our outreach and engagement program as well, this program and ORCCA's work overall recognize that it's not just municipalities that are taking action on climate. Climate adaptation is a society-level effort, and many different types of organizations, institutions, and decision makers have a role to play. We're excited to be a part of that. And so through this program, participants receive direct consulting style support from an ORCCA team member who has been matched with the participant and who contributes toward the completion of a specific adaptation action that otherwise wouldn't be fulfilled. So the hours committed by ORCCA to these projects range from 120 hours to 560 hours, depending on the project. And as such, the project types fall across a wide range of possible actions and outputs. And I've listed some of them here. So climate adaptation plans, climate lens tools, developing community adaptation hubs, financing adaptation and cost of doing nothing reports, which I know are of particular interest to this group, resource development, impact monitoring, engagement for impact specific initiatives, and the list goes on. So implementation planning, partnership development, policy support, and more. Now, one thing that's unique about this program is that it's not just about guidance. It recognizes that capacity is a challenge and brings that into the conversation in conjunction with understanding the specific adaptation needs of each community and providing direct support that enables this project completion. And moreover, it meets participants where they're at. One of the things that we're hoping to be able to produce through this process is a series of case studies that look at what happened through this program, what outputs were created, and you know, in the hopes that that can continue to support other municipalities taking on different types of adaptation initiatives. The other hope that one of the things that ORCCA seeks to do is also produce resources that are relevant to the region and on the topic of adaptation. And so our hope as well with some of these projects is to be able to take the resources that were developed in these one-to-one contexts and make them one-to-many resources. So yeah, stay tuned for the outputs of that. Now,
sorry, can I ask a quick question on the previous slide? Is that involves in person, or it's online support? How does it work?
So it's online, or I think with so many of our things, it's really about the needs of our users. So it largely happens online, and or in a non-direct face-to-face context. However, there are some cases where the processes that we're doing, so sometimes engagement support might require that we're in person to do some of that. And so that's really decided on and was something established in the scoping part of the program with each of the projects.
So this program is already running with the 15 municipalities. Would you expect another round of the same program?
So ORCCA is a pilot initiative, and so this is for now the one round of this that we do have operating, but our hope is that we'll be able to do it again. So it's one of those opportunities where we say, stay tuned.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
No problem. And so the outreach and engagement program, and it won't all be programs that are already underway. The third thing I'll talk about, the communications program, is one that's upcoming. But the outreach and engagement program is another program that launched in January, and the projects are now underway. So through this program, we're working with 14 communities, including 2 conservation authorities, 8 municipal projects, 1 health unit, and 3 regional nonprofits. Now, this means in total, ORCCA is currently working with over 30 program participants through these 2 programs. And one of the things that I was discussing just before this webinar was that can range anywhere from people who are completely new to this process to people who have been doing this a long time. And one of the things that's really great to see in this role and through these efforts is how many municipalities are engaging this conversation. So I just wanted to sort of share that insight. Now, in order to develop this program, we sought to identify the ways in which engagement can inform the adaptation planning and implementation process, and identified the key challenges that are often a part of this process. So it's a little more targeted than the staff capacity program, which, as you saw, ranges across project types and included engagement and projects that didn't involve any engagement. This is really engagement focused. And so one of the cohorts is divided into 2 cohorts, and this was because we recognized that there were sort of these 2 key areas where one sort of faces engagement challenges, and that would be useful to support projects in their adaptation, planning, and implementation. So one of these cohorts is focused on stakeholder engagement, and the other is focused on champion development. And I'll just give you a little more insight into what these look like shortly. Now, I just wanted to highlight some of the key benefits of this program, which include guidance and support from ORCCA staff on key engagement processes, such as trainings, workshops, and consultations, opportunities for one-on-one and group learning, and, the development of an implementation-ready outreach and engagement plan that supports local climate resilience. So looking at the 2 streams that we have through this program, these were, again, based on identified action and need. So the first seeks to support stakeholder engagement in the process of adaptation planning, and the other aims to cultivate community champions who can provide training and garner community support for the efforts underway. Both of these streams offer opportunities for one-on-one and cohort learning, and include the co-development and delivery of stakeholder or train-the-trainer workshops that can be taken by the participants and used in future engagements. One of the things that we really see as being important in this process is providing the tools to enable municipalities to do this work with or without our involvement. And so it was really important for us to be involved in initiating either of a workshop or a train-the-trainer engagement, and then giving those tools to the municipalities to carry that into the future and carry that on further. Now, the third program that we offer is a climate communications toolkit and learning. And so this is still in development and will be launching in fall 2024, and includes 2 parts. So the climate communications toolkit seeks to bring together insights and tactics from behavioral science and communications best practices to support local adaptation efforts. It features a wide range of different tactics that one can take to engage, again, different kinds of audiences, and overcome the challenges and barriers that often emerge in the process of communicating important messages on climate change and adaptation, and for connecting with different audiences. One of the really exciting features is also the inclusion of numerous case studies in this toolkit that will help to show these tactics in action, and which can help to inspire your own communications efforts in relation to driving adaptation. Now, in addition to the toolkit, there will be learning opportunities that will take place in order to get an in-depth understanding of the tactics and key communications processes that are shared as a part of this resource. And so if you would like to be kept up to date on the toolkit and learning, we recommend that you follow us on LinkedIn or sign up for our newsletter through the ORCCA website, and I'll share links to those at the end of this session as well. We will continue to keep everyone up to date. So moving on from the programmatic side is the service side. In addition to the programs offered through ORCCA, we offer 2 services that can support users on an ongoing basis. The first I'm sharing with you is the ORCCA Resource Library. So the goal of the ORCCA Resource Library is to connect users with information, tools, documents, and products related to climate change adaptation that is relevant to Great Lakes communities and Ontarians. It's updated on a monthly basis to ensure that all of the resources are relevant, up to date, and able to support your efforts across a range of topics, data, and adaptation actions. So I'm just going to give you a sense of the site in action. So just give me one moment. There we go. So here you can see the ORCCA resource portal. And if you go down to the bottom of the page, it gives you the option for a searchable library of adaptation resources that you can either use keywords to search or can search by region, climate issue, primary focus, a range of options. Now, so I wanted to show you an example of how you could use it. You could look up, for example, health. Simple, easy sort of topic to look up, and it comes up with 26 different options. Now, that sometimes can be perhaps an overwhelming number for some, and some research terms will not produce such a wide number of resources. But one of the things that we really like to emphasize is that if you're struggling to figure out from that list of resources that have come up the right one for you, that we really encourage you to reach out to us directly. We have a support desk, which I'll get into shortly. And we'd be happy to help you navigate the options to find the right resource to support your needs. Now I'm gonna dive into a couple of resources just briefly. So on my next slide, I've pulled up a few resources just based off of some of the research questions that I know have been a part of your conversations. So on this slide, you can see a range of different resources from guides to data portals to reports and case studies, all pulled from different adaptation organizations across the adaptation spectrum. So for example, if you're looking for case studies, the map of successful adaptation projects, the map of adaptation actions, which I'll open in 1 minute, provides a searchable and visualized database, which has case studies from across different action types and regions. And it's a really great starting point for finding the inspiration that you might need and considering the kind of efforts you might undertake. So again, this is searchable through the resource library, but for ease, have opened it here. And so if you go to lower down on the page, there's a map here which has a huge number of different types of actions that were taken, and each of these gives a case study that explores, in more detail, what was undertaken, identified actions, how it was implemented, monitoring progress, next steps, and other resources that can support that type of work. So we really recommend that this is a great starting point for finding case studies. Another one that I've pulled up here and that I know is of particular relevance is the Cost of Doing Nothing toolkit. So this is a resource that links actually to the full toolkit on the ICLEI Canada webpage. And as you can see here, as I go down to the page, there are a number of documents included in this toolkit, which can help you in undertaking the process of doing a Cost of Doing Nothing report, primer documents, municipal template instructions, as well as some specific tools. So a municipal template that helps you actually outline what that report is going to look like, as well as a data collection tracking tool. And so this is a really great starting point for those of you who are hoping to jump into the Cost of Doing Nothing process. Next slide. So as I've mentioned, the data tracking tool is one of the pieces that's included here, and it's a really good starting point for identifying and tracking the types of data to start collecting for the process. Now, I am not personally a Cost of Doing Nothing expert, but I connected with my team in recognition of some of the questions that you had in terms of finding the right local data. And while the data tracking tool is a great starting point, for municipalities, one of the pieces that's really important is the need to connect with specific departments and stakeholders to really get the kind of local information that you need. And so, we want to let you know that, again, we're here if you have questions about how to get deeper into the local data collection process. We encourage you to reach out to us. And also, there are lots of different sources for finding this kind of data. One of my colleagues shared with me that they're working with a university on a Cost of Doing Nothing report. And one of the things that they were able to provide data on was the cost of climate change on student attendance. And so there was specific data that mapped out the cost of student absences as a result of specific climate events and impacts. So again, we just encourage you to reach out to us if you are struggling in this process, to ask us your questions, and we'll see what we can do to support. Another couple of resources that I've shared here, again, sort of related to the Cost of Climate change. So I have the cost of climate change, a series of 5 reports that was developed by the Canadian Climate Institute, an ICLEI guide on introducing indicators. So a first look at using indicators to measure adaptation progress, and then a case study series about using data to drive adaptation that you can all see here. Again, I know that case studies are a really good starting point for getting a better sense of what you might do and also how to start that process. And so I do recommend exploring the ORCCA resource library and seeing what speaks to you. So the last area that I wanted to share, the resource, I guess, that I wanted to share with you is the ORCCA support desk. Through the ORCCA support desk, you can find access to climate information, adaptation assistance, guidance on resources, support for local decision-making, and new connections. So while all of those resources are available through the resource library, as I've mentioned, one of the additional benefits of ORCCA is that we'll help you navigate them and identifying which resources are the right ones to support your work. So I have, again, linked to the website here, just to give you a sense of what it, there we go. So the ORCCA support desk is here and available, and you can see the kinds of support that we can provide, questions on adaptation, navigating resources like historical data projections or guidance for adaptation planning. You know, our experts are here and available. And so you can reach out to us through the inquiry form that's on the website directly, and that comes to our monitored support desk inbox, or you can reach out to us by phone or via email. And you know, whether you need help finding the right data, understanding its significance, guidance on integrating climate information into your decision-making, we've got you covered with our dedicated climate adaptation support. Our services are entirely free and accessible to all Great Lakes communities and Ontarians, and can be accessed anytime through the ORCCA website, by email, or by phone, if you've seen. Once we receive your inquiry, a member of the ORCCA team will reach out to further connect and work together in getting the answers you need. So whatever your question, big or small, the ORCCA team is here to support you. Now, the last thing I wanted to share before closing out is to give you some examples of the possible questions that you might consider asking us. So these questions have been informed by some real examples of inquiries that we've received, as well as some of the questions that were shared with us in the webinar planning process. So for example, this first question is one that we received in different formats. And we like, so our municipality is new to climate adaptation. Can we connect with someone to discuss next steps? So, one such, we like to schedule in these cases conversations to directly touch base with these inquiries and really be able to get an understanding of the context and the need that is informing this process. And so to give you an example, we received a question of this variety from a district municipality in Ontario, and it resulted actually in a really interesting collaboration where we were able to match the initial user with another request that we had received. So one was seeking to start the adaptation process, as noted here, and then we received another inquiry from a university that was looking for student guidance for final projects. We were able to match these users together to undertake a process which resulted in the students getting to undertake applied research in developing climate data report, and which produced a climate data report for the municipality in need. And working together, they not only got to build that relationship between the students and practitioners doing this work, but it also helped to initiate the process of adaptation planning, for the user that had sent that initial inquiry. I've also just shared a couple of examples. Again, how do we obtain local data when preparing a cost of doing nothing report? And, again, I've touched base on that loosely, but this might be a question that you could offer a little more detail on in terms of the context you're coming to that with, who you might have connected with already, and the kind of specific information you're seeking. And this is a conversation, again, that we would reach out and schedule some time to connect and see what we can do to support you in that process. Another one was, what is a resilience hub? Is it the right option for a community? And obviously, I know you're asking this question at a larger level or larger scale. But this is a kind of question where, again, it's great to reach out and see what we can discuss together to understand, because each of these adaptation actions, is informed by the unique context and the needs of each municipality. And so this is a great conversation to be able to start to consider that process. from your end. So that was another example. And then the final example I wanted to share was, and this is a really specific one, but are there any resources to support adaptation in our economic development and tourism divisions? So this was, again, a very specific question that we received through the support desk. And I will tell you sort of how we approach that, but one of the things I did want to note with that is that you can ask us questions that are this specific, and we're going to do our best to find those resources for you. Now, in this case, this was one of those areas where there weren't a ton of available public resources on how economic development departments and tourism divisions and sort of stakeholders are approaching this question of adaptation. And so what we were able to do was, again, we connected with the user who had asked this question, and then we actually engaged in some desk research alongside engaging in conversations with some of our network and some of the, sort of people who had done some of this work before to get those answers. And so we were able to prepare a resource that we could then share back with the municipality who had made this initial request. They then shared that to their network that they were a part of. And so through that, we were able to find specific tailored resources that were able to support their efforts. And so just to show you, again, this is just 4 questions out of so many questions that you could send and ask. And we recommend that you connect with us. So again, there's our email address, our phone number, as well as the website where you can access the support desk. And so on a final note, ORCCA is here to help you find the right solution. If you want to keep up to date with the things happening in the ORCCA network, you want to be aware of our programs when the Climate Communications program is starting to launch, feel free to subscribe to our newsletter at orccacracow.ca. You can find us on LinkedIn at as well, orca_Krakow, or you can reach out to us directly through orca.krakow@icli.org. So on that note, I think I'm done with sharing the presentation.
Thank you so much, Naomi, for this presentation. It's great to see. We always talk about this, like having we're a bunch of organizations. We talked about this even before the start. We're a bunch of organizations that we are really trying to help, and it's great to see one place with all the resources. And even more, I love the idea of the help desk support that you can ask all questions. This is great. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you so much for running this program. Hopefully it will continue. As I think most of the people on the call know, Clean Air Partnership, we really don't want to invent the wheel, and we know that ICLEI has been working with adaptation for a long time, so it's great to see everything in one place in this website. Now we're opening for questions, and we are a small group of people. I can stop the recording at this point if someone wants to be more kind of like sharing more personal information. Not personal, but like information that is internal. Dr. Kate Kennedy.
Hi there, and thanks, Desi, and thanks, Naomi. I really enjoyed. There's so much happening, really, and okay, so I can stay on my soapbox about climate activity across Canada for hours, but here's my deal. How do you get beyond the adaptation planning into the hearts and minds and votes of the municipal councillors? There is huge pushback right now, especially in Ontario. We've seen it in St. Catharines, in Niagara-on-the-Lake, where I live. Nobody wants to know. They want houses built. They want affordability addressed. So, and I'm a senior, and I'm part of SCAN. I'm part of Suzuki Elders. I'm part of CAL. I'm part of a whole bunch of different organizations. We're trying to put our elders' wisdom hats on and work with all the resources there are across Canada and in the United States. Regeneration.org, Project Drawdown. There are resources for so many. So how do we get that working? And maybe that's a rhetorical question because it's a long haul. Thanks.
Thanks so much for the question, and you're right. I mean, you're the elders, and you're asking us, the youngsters. We're asking the same thing, and I could hear that you're speaking on behalf. Like most of our municipalities are in the same boat of like how you get the councillor to actually move and to implementation and have the funding approved. And to be honest, it's a bit sad story here, and you mentioned in Ontario, but it's the only examples that we know that it's working well is when the community has been burned. And then when this happened, then the community is on board, then the council is on board, and then there is like actual, like whenever if it's flooding, then it's like actual actions on flooding. It's so unfortunate that we keep talking about this preparedness, but until the reality is that until it's not happening, then there's not action. And I was just earlier on the call with municipalities in Brazil, actually, that southern Brazil. I don't know if you've heard they experienced this flooding, and it's scenarios that we are trying to think about of like what is happening when there is such a severe flooding, and then there is like electricity, and then it's a catastrophic event, like events that follow after that with like food delivery and etc. I don't have an answer on your question. I'll be happy everyone else from the municipal folks to jump in and share their experience with their councillors. Naomi, also, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't have a full answer or perfect answer to that question, but I think one of the pieces that was raised, even Desi, in your answer, was just this reflection on the role that the community and community awareness plays in that, and having community champions and people who are really invested at the community level in that, and building those networks at the community level. I personally come from a community resilience background in the work that I do, and really believe that building those networks is a really key part of generating that kind of support. I'm sure there are many people on my team who would have a range of different answers in responding to this, but I am curious to hear from other municipalities what their thoughts are. Is anyone from the folks here? I see folks from Burlington, Markham, Halton. Any idea, or are you in the same boat in your teams, in your municipality? Sorry, there is also one comment here. Okay, that's a question I'll ask after. Yeah, I mean, Dr. Kennedy, I hope that you have a better network that you mentioned, and that you will come with something. I think it's a little bit of like desire. Do you really want to work on that? And sometimes counselors are have different agendas. But going back to Naomi's comment, I think community makes sense. And if community is strong, then it's going to push the counselors to move to the right direction. So if someone is focusing more on the community preparedness and like the power, because also some community don't know that they have this power to make change. Oh, Flor, the question is how do you make counselors be more ambitious of providing funding and resources of implementing adaptation? And I guess I'll offer another reflection just from one of the projects that I'm working on, that we've been talking about how to, for example, in a corporate reporting process, generate awareness of the actual connections that exist between some of these pieces, that often recognizing where climate adaptation connects to other things that are happening in a municipality can be a really valuable piece and sort of insight for those decision makers to have a sense of how it perhaps fits within these other priorities. And so, again, not a perfect answer, but I think, different ways of thinking about how to make these connections, more prominent, and how to bring awareness to these in ways that, again, respond to priorities of people where this may not be the primary priority is a really good starting point for starting to understand and build that. There's a question here for you, Naomi, and I think we're partially answering it as we are doing this and partnering the two organizations in this webinar. But does ORCCA partner with similar organizations and share intel insights with other regional or federal groups with similar mandates? Yeah. So just to answer that clearly, we do work together with different other service organizations that are happening. We also work through different again, like sort of work with different working groups that are made up of these different actors in order to share some of our best practices, to learn from some of these challenges, to share questions at times that come up, to better understand how to engage communities in a way that'll be, effective and meaningful. So yeah, I think it really hits on a key part, which is being able to share these learnings and being able to build this across the country and in ways that are able to respond again to the unique challenges as well as the sort of more general challenges that are faced by everyone is really an important part of what we do. And so again, we do that through working with other organizations like ORCCA. We do that through working with, our partners at the federal, in federal departments or at the federal level. Through those connections, and then also through like our steering committee, for example, which the organizations, some are municipalities, some are organizations that are doing this work. And those organizations also, a lot of them happen to operate at the national level. And so again, we all come from slightly different framings or understandings of what that looks like. But a really valuable part of that has been able to share insights and learn from each other.
Yeah, and then our role here was also to to amplify that work, and hopefully we'll be sharing also the case studies coming up from the staff capacity program and from the outreach and engagement as well. Yeah, as I said, we are not here to invent the wheel, but to really work together and support. Yeah, I don't see any questions or comments at this point.
There was just, I see that there's a question also about sort of what has worked in Indigenous communities across Canada. And I think as with so many of these questions, that'll looks like so many different things, but I did just want to share information about a new resource that has been put out recently, the For Our Future Indigenous Resilience Report, which is a part of the National Knowledge Assessment on Climate Change and Adaptation, and is one of the first assessment reports authored by an almost entirely Indigenous authorship team. And I'm happy to share the link to that because I think that's a really great resource for anyone working in this field to get a better understanding, of the conversations, the questions, the issues, the challenges, the possible pathways for action as well.
Right. Thank you so much for that. Something that came in my mind back to Dr. Kate Kennedy, because that's also something that our municipalities are interested as well. It's the like how to make counselors. I believe there's also a piece where kind of like educating counselors on specific climate actions and more on local levels. And Clean Air Partnership is doing this through the Ontario Climate Caucus, which is the subcategory of the Climate Caucus, which is a national network of councillors and elected officials. So our CAC members have been invited, councillors have been invited to participate, and we have monthly meetings where we summarize. So in this case, it's going to be a summary of the adaptation webinar series in a very high level, so we can really have, similar to our approach of how municipal staff is able to discuss topics in our webinars, we bring this to the councillors as well and elected officials so that they can learn from each other as well. So I think that that's a very good way also to support that kind of desire. And I think it comes from seeing what others are doing and getting inspired. That's what Naomi mentioned during the presentation. Case studies are usually and showing the map as well of the adaptation projects. It's something that can inspire. So we are trying our best to bring this to councillors in Ontario as well. And feel free to I shared a guide where we support where we collect kind of the resources that we provided to them. But otherwise, feel free to reach out to us if you want to suggest this to other municipalities. In this case, it's in Ontario to join the Ontario Climate Caucus. I don't have, as you can see, Naomi, answer. I had we chat earlier, and the presentation was tailored in order to answer some of the questions that we gathered, that the research questions in regards to the cost of doing netting, and tools, and as well as kind of like are they existing resilience hubs? This was one of the questions as well. So thank you so much, Naomi, for really tailoring the presentation to answer those questions. As a follow-up, we will be, this is recorded, we will produce meeting notes, but generally we are collecting now information, and then it's going to be one report on the adaptation webinar series that's going to be following up. Last thoughts, Dr. Kennedy?
I just want to compliment you at Clean Air Partnership for doing this. It's a resource that I unfortunately, I think is undervalued and unseen, and we need to get it out there that this is something you're doing. And how about the Federation of Canadian Municipalities? Are they, have you outreach to them so that their members know this is happening on a routine basis?
So we work with, do you mean if they are aware of the Ontario Climate Caucus, or generally of us?
Yeah, you know, we're doing outreach across Canada as a newly formed drive called seniorsforclimate.org. And
yeah.
we are working to try and make sure that this knowledge is made available. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel of the knowledge. We're trying to put it all in one place, just like Naomi and you mentioned earlier. We really don't have time, folks, especially those of us with this many gray hairs. You know, we're trying to help, and it's important. So it seems to me the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, with its 3,500 municipalities, should be aware and should be saying, hey, this is something, who in our municipality is going to be our rep to these, so that we can find out. Today in Niagara-on-the-Lake, with a fellow who's really quite an activist in terms of local things, said that they think they've been successfully applying and receiving over $1 million from the related fund that has to do with disaster prevention, which also directly links into the things Naomi's talking about, because most of the friggin' disasters are climate related these days. Flooding, shoreline protection, and speaking of shoreline protection, the Climate Atlantic folks for all the Atlantic provinces have an outstanding adaptation group there. And if you're in the Atlantic provinces, and Naomi, you must know what they're doing out there, and it's amazing. The same with the toolkit.bc.ca. Their whole site is about adaptation in British Columbia. So that's, I mean, I get excited when I sit here and listen to you guys. I really do. I'm just trying to figure out how together we seniors can also publicize this more. And, you know, we've got an upcoming webinar on the 28th of May. We're inviting people to understand that it takes activism as well as smart science and experience to come up with things, but we need to work together more. And so I'm here. I'll put my email in the chat. I'm here to listen and help. And many of us seniors, you know, SCAN in Ontario is a very active group in terms of climate. And
they were the ones we started the webinar series with. Thanks to them and their effort to actually make the province to publicize the adaptation series. So we did have them on board, and you're absolutely right. We all trying this. I think that's the same for like ICLEI and ORCCA and us. We are like trying our best to work together, actually, because that's the kind of like, that's the only way. Back to like your question for the FCM, I think they are aware of both of ORCCA and of us. It's just there's certain programs that we are partnering with. But I can hear you how it seems that sometimes the information is here and there, and that there is no one place. But that's why ORCCA is like great in that, you know, for Ontario. And it's great that we have other like other participants here as well, such as the seniors, and like it is good to kind of like be more proactive in engaging our own audiences and make sure that they're aware of the other programs and projects as well. I think it is crucial, and it is part of also that community knowledge in order for them to push the councillors and the municipalities to do things. So thank you so much for the comment.
Sorry, and I don't mean to monopolize, and I really like to hear from some of the other people that are here. But Naomi, don't forget to look at the SCAN website and its 5-chapter resource on how to hold climate conversations. It's there, it works. Deep canvassing has been started by Sierra Club with Neighbors United here in Canada. There's deep canvassing training that takes place almost every month in the US. It's free. And those kinds of engagement techniques, especially for people who are in community, who, as you said, need to get down to that bottom grassroots level and reach out so that we can convince. There's a whole lot of headwinds, particularly in Ontario. And I'm born and brought up in this area, but we need to get beyond that. We need to get the message out. We need to get some champions trained in each municipality. And that, I think, should be a goal of both organizations, because if you don't have a champion or two in your municipality, it's not going to happen. Thanks.
Absolutely. And I think, Naomi, that's one of the programs, right? You're supporting municipalities with the champions. And I echo this. Last year, we had kind of like a governance piece and like what makes the most sense to have in place in order for the municipality to be ambitious. And that was a champion either in the council level or senior kind of like staff, senior management, in order to push things and like take ownership and kind of like give the staff the power and the shake to like move ahead. Sorry, Naomi, did you want to?
No, I was just going to say thank you for the resource recommendation, and I'll share that with our team here as an opportunity for something to explore and discuss again as we continue to find ways to support municipalities, communities, users across the province, and to inform our programs and the tools that we develop. It's been a pleasure to get to connect with everyone here. So yeah, thank you for the time, thank you for the questions, and I look forward to hearing from everyone. So.
Thank you very much for everyone that participated. Thank you, Naomi, once again for your presentation. Stay tuned for our next webinar as part of this series, and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye, everyone.